Okay, so it's the end of week 3. Your team is in shambles. The sky is falling upon your head. What can you do? Well, if you're actually in this position where your team is truly unfixable, I've got 7 points for you guys, especially in those dynasty and keeper leagues that'll help start rebuilding your team for next year and years to come. What's up, guys? Welcome back to FFT. I'm Trevor. Let's check it out. Okay, so I've got 7 points that we're going to go through. The first thing you need to identify, though, before you even jump into these things, is truly identifying if your team is one of those teams that's at the bottom of your league. You have no chance of making playoffs. You are, scoring way below the average of the other teams in your league. There's nobody on waivers for you to pick up. There's nothing that you have no assets on your bench or people that you can be trading away to try to fix your team. You need to identify that first, because we are only at the end of week 3. If you're 1-2, it's not necessarily the time to rebuild unless, of course, like I just said, you have critical players who are now injured and are out for the remainder of the season. You need to identify if this is truly where you're at. So don't go into rebuild if you have a chance at coming back this year. Let's focus on this year first. But if you are in a spot where after this week, going into week 4, week 5, this might be the video for you if you need to start thinking about how to fix your team in the years to come. Obviously, this strategy isn't going to work. These 7 points aren't going to help you if you're in a redraft league, because it doesn't matter. Next year, you're going to have a fresh team anyway. So this is truly only for those people that are in dynasty and keeper leagues that have the opportunity to start rebuilding for these next years. So let's start with point number 1, and it's identify your team needs. You need to, as a leader of your team, identify where you're strong, where you're weak, where you're deep. If you have a ton of wide receivers, you don't need to be acquiring new wide receivers off the waiver wire. You need to be focusing maybe more on running backs and quarterbacks. You also need to start identifying, where's your youth? Where are people going to start falling off a cliff? Do you have like a Derrick Henry that's maybe not showing great signs this year and is only going to continue to get older? You need to start identifying these things and really be honest with yourself about where your team stands. Obviously, youth is a huge aspect. We're going to get into that here in a second. But trying to figure out your strengths and weaknesses of your team is key, and the first thing you need to be paying attention to. Number 2 is sell high. If you are in a rebuild kind of phase for your team, you really need to be letting go and be willing to let go of stud players, especially if they're older and potentially league winners for other teams in your league that have the chance to fight and battle in those playoff spots. So I'm thinking of people like Christian McCaffrey. I'm thinking of people like A.J. Brown or, Austin Eckler. Guys like that who are maybe a little older but have the potential to be truly game changers for these teams that they'll end up on. And so because they haven't reached their peak and the cliff that they're going to fall off of, you have the opportunity to still sell them high. And so if you're in this rebuild phase where you're building for 1 or 2 years out, you need to think about where the players that you currently have are probably going to project for that next year and 2 years out. So be thinking about that and think, is the value that they're at right now going to increase or diminish as time goes on? So that it's sometimes hard to do. You can do research on this online. People give their thoughts and opinions about individual players and teams and where they're projected, whether or not they're continuing to climb or maybe they only have 1 or 2 years left. Obviously, something to keep in mind is that running backs' shelf life is a lot lower than a wide receiver. So if you're in a dynasty league where you're playing 2 running backs and 3 wide receivers, let's say, your running backs are not going to last nearly as long as a wide receiver. And what I mean by that is a running back is only, they get beaten and bruised over and over. You see all these ACL injuries from running backs often because they're the ones that are just running through defensive lines and trying to make cuts and do things that wide receivers don't necessarily have to do all the time. Obviously, you get those same sort of injuries at the wide receiver position, but running backs, I mean, you see them start to drop off at, 26, 27, 28. You have Derrick Henrys who are a little bit older than that, but you see that cliff a lot earlier than you do with wide receivers. So keep that in mind as you're looking to sell these individuals. If you have a running back who's 26, 27, 28, they're approaching their cliff a lot sooner than a wide receiver will. So just something to keep in mind. And also, as you're looking to trade and sell high, you want to be targeting those teams that have a good chance at winning playoffs this year, because they might value a Christian McCaffrey that you're trying to sell higher than another team where they go, I'm really, stashing away McCaffrey for next year and not necessarily this year. And so they might not value them as high as somebody who goes, man, I'm second or third in my league, and in order to take that next step up, Christian McCaffrey will do it for me. So identifying that is absolutely something you want to do before you just start making willy-nilly trades here and there. Number 3 is get draft picks. Obviously, a way to rebuild your team is finding picks for future years. It doesn't have to be the next year that's up and coming. It can be 2 years down the road, maybe even 3 years down the road. So don't be too hesitant to do that, but you need draft picks. Let's see here. Let's talk about the draft picks and their order. So like I'm in an 8-team dynasty league where the cliff between round 1 and round 2, and then round 2 and round 3 are pretty deep. They're pretty substantial. So like going from having a first round pick is a lot different than having a second round pick. Obviously, the size of your leagues are going to determine this. Larger leagues are going to have even a larger cliff because you have more players in each league. So, or in each round. So like if you have a 12-team league, you're going to have 12 players go in that first round. By the time you get to your second round, you're already looking at number 13 rather than in an 8-team league, you're looking at number 9. So that's a pretty big gap there. But even with an 8-team league, there's still that cliff between those rounds. So if you're able to, like a third round pick is a lot less valuable than a first round pick. So you really want to be targeting those earlier rounds and also identifying with and trading with teams that you know are going to be lower in your league like rosters, or what's the word I'm looking for? They're not doing as well in your league. Why is this not coming to me right now? And so you want to, or positionally. So like if they're at the very bottom, obviously they're going to have an earlier round first round pick. And so those are the sort of things you want to be identifying and making sure you understand how your league does rookie drafts. So that's something to take a look at. And then there's also, you can do research on this. There's things called draft pick value charts that are out there. So as you're trading away players, you can kind of identify, hey, like Deontay Johnson maybe goes in the second or the third round right now. So you're not, selling lower than you should be for some of these players. So look up some of those charts. They're free and available online for you guys. Number 4, focus youth and ceiling for your players. Obviously, if you're trading and rebuilding a team, you don't want to be trading for older players. You want to be trading for players that have a lot of years ahead of them, have backup roles on their teams, or are coming in as rookies. And so you're identifying them as players with huge upside and lots of years ahead of them. So again, it's a pretty simple concept, but you're not trading for Derrick Henrys right now. You're not trading for Austin Eckler's right now. You're not trading for Cooper Kupps right now. You're trading for players that are newer to the league and have a lot of upside, because that's where you're going to find league winners down the road, is identifying these players that even if they don't hit, you are taking chances on these people. And so that's what you want to be doing. Number 5, scrounge waivers. Draft picks and trading aren't the only way that you can acquire people. If you are somebody that's rebuilding, identify those people right now that have key backup roles or have opportunities as rookies that maybe aren't as popular. Like they aren't the Jordan Addisons, or they aren't the Jahmyr Gibbs. They're people that are kind of falling down. Maybe guys like Rashawn Johnson, or guys like Kendre Miller, if they're still available. guys like that I'm thinking of that may still be available on their team. Tyjae Spears, guys like that may not be available in a lot of leagues, but if they're there, identify them and go pick them up. You may be wanting to spend maybe a little bit more than a person that already has a good running back room and doesn't necessarily need them. Be willing to spend up on these guys. So last year, for example, I acquired Jordan Love and Brock Purdy off the waiver wires just because a lot of my league mates didn't need quarterbacks. They didn't see them as necessarily good options, and I got them for a steal. I did spend up a little bit more than what obviously some other guys bid because I acquired them, but I didn't spend an arm and a leg. I just identified them as needs for my team and was willing to go get them. There are also other gems out there this year that got picked up, like Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, Devon Achane, I think is how you pronounce his last name. But those guys, I don't know if they're available anymore, but there are still guys out there this year that are going to be picked up in weeks 5, week 6, week 7. So be paying attention to injuries and things like that because waivers can be an incredibly helpful tool, and you don't have to trade away assets in order to get that. You're spending fake money that'll go away at the end of this year anyway, so go spend it. Number 6 is trade. Send out a million trades. Just because you send out a trade offer to somebody that gets rejected or turned down, or they send a counter offer, don't accept it right away. Send out a million trades and give a platter of options to your league mates to look at and get their mind thinking, oh, maybe I do actually want this player. And they'll send you a counter offer that maybe does make sense. But go trade for those players. Go trade right now for draft picks for next year. If you wait until the spring to start trading for draft picks, that's what people's minds are on. Right now, they don't care about draft picks as much in the future. Right now, they're focused on this season. So you can get draft picks at a little bit of a discount than you can if you're trying in the spring. Because if you wait till the spring, everybody's focused on the rookie draft now and they're the real draft for the NFL. And so everyone's going to be wanting to acquire those last minute draft picks. And so they're going to come at a fee if you're waiting to do that. So if you are in a rebuild phase right now, be acquiring those draft picks that, you know, you can get Caleb Williams for later on. So that's something to do. Let's see. I said often takes multiple trades to get one completed. Don't get down on yourself. Go identify people that are willing to trade. I only have like 2 or 3 people in my league that are really open to trades the majority of the season. Identifying those people and spending the time on them and sending out a few offers to other people is important too, but identifying the people that are willing to negotiate is important as well. And then number 7, this is the last point, is patience. It takes time to rebuild a team. It's not going to happen necessarily next year. Even if you start rebuilding now for next year, even rookies and promising rookies don't really come to flower until the end or halfway through their rookie year. And so it may take a year and a half, 2 years to really start finding kind of your ground again in your league. So that's something that you need to be willing to do in a rebuild. The other thing is just don't lose sight of your rebuild. If you are in a rebuild stage, you need to commit to the rebuild stage. You can't be kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. If you're trying to bring in Christian McCaffrey and trading away Jordan Addison, you're not going to accomplish what you're trying to with a rebuild. You need to truly understand what you're doing. Don't go get Derrick Henry after you trade away Austin Eckler. That's just not going to do you any good. You really need to have that committed mindset to rebuilding your team. I know it's not fun. You're committing to potentially coming back as a dominant player in 1 or 2 years from now, which seems like a long time, but you got to do what you got to do. And it's just going to take even longer if you make a mistake and spend up on somebody that is older or, you're trading away draft picks that you just spent all this time acquiring. Don't do that. Don't lose sight of what you're trying to do. Go get rookies, go get backups, go get draft picks, scrounge the waiver wire. You've got options, but I hope you guys appreciated these 7 tips. Let me know in the comments if I'm missing anything or if I kind of glossed over anything I shouldn't be. But I appreciate you guys checking this video out. Please like and subscribe if you guys want to see some more FFT content. I cover the Nebraska Cornhuskers and fantasy football. I bring out videos every week, multiple videos throughout the week. So make sure you like and subscribe if you guys want to see more of that. But until then, I'll catch you later. See you guys.